Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man whose comeback starts here. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. I don't think it was the best week wild card round for me, but it's okay. We're ready to bounce back. A lot of points at stake this week, so I just need a win.
Yes, Kyle, it was a bit of a rough one. You played it. I made fun of you for playing it safe, and then you somehow still went backwards.
Yeah, the Chargers got me. That was what it was. And then the Vikings got me, so that didn't help either.
It was great for me because the two games that I got wrong, you got more wrong, so it really worked out.
Yeah, it is what it is. We live and we learn, and then we're going to bounce back. That's how I feel.
Okay. Well, this be the year, Kyle. The nice thing is, the way we do this is the end of the season matters so much. The postseason matters so much, just like the NFL teams. So here's what we're gonna do in this show is we're gonna preview the 4 divisional games. However, we did not talk about the Monday game last podcast because we did it on Sunday, so we'll preview that one as well. Also, I want to mention just at the top of the show, be on the lookout. Our show's going to be earlier on Sunday than usual. We're going to do it at 10:30 instead of our usual midnight Eastern time, just because the games are over earlier. So we figure we'll show up earlier and get into all that. But yeah, Kyle, let's just get into it. Let's talk Vikings Rams.
Yeah, let's talk Vikings Rams indeed. And this wasn't the. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to put this one on his highlight reel from this season. I'll be honest.
Yeah. What a disappointment, honestly, right? I mean, Sam Darnold, how much money, just think about that. How much money did he cost himself these past 2 weeks? There's bad games. And then there's not only did you have a bad game, but you probably just cost yourself. I mean, okay, he's still going to get generational wealth. A backup quarterback contract is generational wealth. But he cost himself generational 100 generational wealth.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that I'm not too sympathetic of the Sam Darnold situation based on the money that he has still in his bank account, I'm assuming. But yeah, I would say this was a significant cost to his future payday. Granted, we've seen NFL teams do dumb things in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if a dumb team, the Colts or the Jets, does a dumb thing in the future. But yeah, this didn't look good. And yeah, I mean, as far as Sam Darnold goes, I thought obviously he struggled. He made some poor plays. And I also think the Minnesota line of scrimmage did not do him a whole lot of favors either. I thought that they got blown up a lot. And this young Rams defensive line continues to impress late in the season where, I think that was the big thing that stuck out to me. And I've, said it over the past few weeks with this Rams team is they really struggled to start the season defensively. And it's no surprise. They had a bunch of young pieces, a few injuries. Aaron Donald obviously retired, which was the big thing. And all of a sudden now this defensive line looks really, really good. And you're looking at guys like Verse, Fisk, Kobe Turner, obviously, all just being impact players, it feels like, on this defense week in and week out.
Yeah, definitely the Vikings. I mean, their offensive line. Obviously they lost Christian Darrisaw early on in the year, so they traded for Cam Robinson just as kind of like a hopefully this could be okay. And then they lost Brian O'Neill in this game. Kind of midway through the game, but still that didn't make things any easier. Although they were getting pressure throughout. The pressure was a real thing. Also, Sam Darnold was having a lot of fun getting sacked over and over again. He seemed like he was enjoying that.
Yeah, 9 sacks in this game. That obviously plays a lot on the quarterback too. Some of those situations are things that he has to be better at. And like you said, it was a huge swing in what we've seen from Darnold all season. And obviously that changed a lot of Minnesota's fortunes this year.
And the thing too is I kind of thought that receiving core was getting open, like for a decent chunk of it at least. I mean, there was like even the hits that Darnold was making. It's like he's throwing behind Hawkinson, and Hawkinson's then still adjusting, making the catch, and getting a touchdown. Like there
Mhm.
were opportunities. I'm not gonna say every play, but there were opportunities in this game. And it was just, I mean, they would move the ball down the field, and then Darnold would turn the ball over too. Like that was a part of it.
Yeah. No, it really was. I mean, it's a huge thing, and it's hard to quantify exactly what this Minnesota thing is because, it's one of those things where they win 14 games, they have to go on the road for the playoffs, which was in Arizona, but still a road game technically.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt like things kind of crumbled around them, and it started at the quarterback position where they just got everything exceeded expectations this season from Donald in this quarterback play, and then it really just crumbled starting with him and then going around. Like you said, I think the receivers still played really well. This is a really good receiving room for JJ McCarthy or Sam Darnold next season, I guess, if they decide to bring him back. It just, it wasn't really enough. But the other part of this too is yeah, they ended up holding them to 3 points in the second half and played much better. I don't think this defense that was, highly touted all year played very well either. I think they really struggled to get stops against this Matthew Stafford offense, and, you know, if we talk about Darnold, I think we also have to talk about Stafford, and, once again, we continue to say it about this trade, man, these are the moments that you get a guy like Matthew Stafford in a trade for, because he
Mm-hmm.
absolutely did this game too in his own right. Granted, the defense did its work too, did its job, but Stafford also rose up to another level again, as he's done for multiple postseasons with this Rams team.
Yeah, and at first I thought it was just gonna be like one of those Matthew Stafford games. I mean, they got up to that 10-0 lead early on, and he was making some great plays. He's getting them to jump off sides on 4th and 1. Like he just fully, fully being Matthew Stafford. It cooled off a bit. I thought they made too many penalties offensively, and then
Mhm.
also they were just trying to kill the clock in the entire fourth quarter, as were the Vikings, which we can get into. But yeah, I thought that he was fantastic. I mean, if you were told me that Nakua only had 44 yards in this game, I'd say, oh wow, Rams lost by a million. But they spread it around, and also, like I said, didn't have to throw a ton. 27 attempts, 209 yards.
Yeah, yeah, and Cup also only had one catch. He's been a little weird lately. I'd like to see him break out and have a big game in this postseason. But yeah, I mean, huge credit to the Rams. Very complete football game. This looks like a very complete football team. I do still have, as you mentioned, worries about their secondary going forward against some of these better teams, but they look very good in this game overall. And they're going on to the next round. They got a tough game next week.
It's absolutely bizarre that after the Bills game, when they beat the Bills 44-42, they've just become like an elite defense for the next
Mhm.
month. Now they played the 49ers in the rain, the Jets, and then the Cardinals finally playing here, but still, like it's been some good stuff. Yeah. So Michael with a super chat says, "Legend has it the Steelers are now facing harassment allegations filed by the golf cart girl. Steelers will try again next year." Yeah, that sums up the season there.
Yeah, someone's getting banned from the country club now. Way to go.
Yes, I agree. The new listeners might be confused, but that's okay. Kyle, so I was curious. Sam Darnold, 65 million in career earnings. Being a backup
Yeah,
quarterback's not being a third overall pick and then a backup quarterback, not a bad gig.
no, he'll be okay. And
Mhm.
he's going to get a job next year still. Maybe not a starter, or maybe not like a big starter money, but he's going to get a job next season. He still had a very good year. Um, I guess kind of eulogizing now this Viking season as we tend to do on these playoff podcasts. It's interesting. I think this team, obviously exceeded expectations. Like we had very little expectations for this defense performing again. They overachieved expectations again with Brian Flores. Brian Flores is an elite defensive coordinator. He's doing what he does there. At the end of the day, when you look at the Vikings, and this is true for football at the professional level, college level, high school level. I mean, the college has their blue chip ratio where no national champion in the last 25 years, I think it is. I could be wrong on those numbers exactly, has a blue chip ratio of less than 50%, which is basically saying 50% of their roster more is 4 and 5 star players. Best recruits, basically, is what it's saying. And I think at the NFL level, just talking about it, this team overexceeded expectations significantly. They won 14 games. They had a phenomenal year. But is it just to the point now where playoff football, even at the NFL level, is about star players making star impact plays. And like, don't get me wrong, Justin Jefferson is very much a star player. They have a couple guys. I just don't know if there's enough on this team right now.
Well, it's a fair point. I mean, because like I think the defense is a good example of like I think Brian Flores did a great job with this defense. Everyone kept kind of was making fun of him, like, oh, all he does is blitz. He doesn't know anything else. It's like, well, if they don't blitz, like they're a horrible. Like if this drop back and play coverage, this is not a good defense. Like they need to be keeping the opponent under toes or they're screwed. And it seemed like if you could handle that, basically there was no answer that Flores had. I think you have to try and get. I mean, the Dallas Turner pick, he's a young player. Maybe he'll work out. I don't think that's fully, I'm sure they would have rather had Jared Verse as of right now. Like, that hasn't fully worked out. There's been a couple others. I do think they need to, you're right. They need to build this roster a little bit more. The good thing is, I mean, at least Sam Darnold, at least he did this now instead of waiting a couple weeks, right? Because we were saying you have to keep Darnold. I think that's the big discussion. I really think the Vikings, just knowing what they are, like they're a very analytically inclined team. They made this move to try and go out, get a new quarterback. They let Cousins walk. I think maybe they tag Darnold. I think they probably, maybe they tag and trade Darnold. I think what they really probably do is just let him walk and go with JJ McCarthy.
I think it's the right move. I mean, I don't know. Like, realistically, if Sam Darnold is going to start commanding $30 million, I guess, because that's kind of the going rate for these breakout quarterbacks almost. If he gets like a Baker Mayfield offer or a Geno Smith offer, the right move is probably to just go with JJ McCarthy and let him walk, right? Like, I just don't see a scenario where you're winning a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold on that contract. Like, you probably can still win games, but I don't know if you're winning a Super Bowl with that scenario.
I agree. I think a lot of franchises look at Tampa Bay and look at Seattle and say, we want a quarterback like that. I think they look at it and say, that's not necessarily the situation we're going for, especially when you factor in there's a lot of quarterback needy teams that don't have a pick that will get them a quarterback. Like, so I think the Raiders, this is something where it's like, okay, the Raiders probably don't want to keep doing these stopgaps, but like maybe this is what you have to do. Maybe the Colts do this. Like, maybe this is what the Browns have a pick, but there's teams that might need a quarterback. I feel like you're gonna have to outbid them, and I don't think they will.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I mean, the easy thing about the Viking situation compared to others is the scary part of letting your veteran quarterback walk is entering the unknown. They at least have a guy in the building that they feel pretty excited about because they were excited enough to draft him in the first round last year. So as long as they're still excited about the idea of JJ McCarthy, then I think it's the right move to move on.
Yeah, in a weird way, this kind of worked out exactly as the Vikings wanted it to work out. It's just a weird way that it got there.
Yeah, very roundabout way. But yeah, I mean, there was a time where this looked like it could be Daniel Jones 2.0. Ironically, he's on the team too.
He got some airtime on that game. That's never good. Yeah, that's never good when they're showing Daniel Jones on the sideline.
I would say that's not ideal. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out in the offseason. But I would imagine he's starting for another team next year. That would be my prediction right now.
Should Sam Darnold have gone over Daniel Jones like, hey, I'll give you some money here. Just go hide behind the blue medical tent or something for the rest of the game. Like I don't want him to see. I don't want him to cut to you. Then people are going to realize how bad I'm playing.
Yeah, go chill in the locker room for a bit. That's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Daniel Jones has money. He'll be okay.
Probably, yeah. Because again, $65 million for Sam Darnold, a guy who we look at as a career backup in a bust. Yeah, you make money being in the NFL.
We should have done that. Why didn't we be quarterbacks?
Well, I like podcasting, Kyle.
Yeah. I think I'd rather have quarterback money. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think the super chat money doesn't quite hit the same, but maybe one day, Kyle.
Yeah. If anyone wants to throw us down to $65 million, feel free. I mean,
yes. If anyone wants to, hey, overlap. Where are you? Kyle, let's move on. As I mentioned, you are currently down 7 points, but you got a chance to make it a game again. Let's get into the divisional preview. We'll talk more about the Rams when we do that. Which game do you want to start off with? Do you want to let's not bury the lead. What am I saying? Which game do you want to start off with? We know which game we all want to start off with. Ravens, who are now favored. They opened as underdogs. It's now flipped. They are favored. 1 point favorites, though, against the Buffalo Bills. Again, Kyle, we talked about this last week as almost the it feels like the number one contender match. Winner will play the Houston Texans or maybe the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, definitely feels like that. Or maybe the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it definitely is that situation. Both of these teams are chomping at the bit for that opportunity at Kansas City. You would assume this is both of these teams vying for their 2006 Colts moment, but they got to get through each other first. And it should be entertaining. It is the top two MVP candidates from this season. It is it's awesome. This is everything you want in a playoff football game. So no shock that it's a Sunday night game. I'm excited to watch this one. I'm excited to talk about it that night. And I think there's a lot of storylines to this, even beyond the quarterbacks. We're looking at this Ravens offense and the Bills offense that seem to be playing some really great football at the right time. And then obviously you have the dynamic of, the Ravens kind of beat the brakes off the Bills earlier in the season. So all of this kind of comes to fruition, and I cannot wait to see these two teams go head to head.
What's interesting is, so it was, I believe it was week 4. It was week
Mhm.
4. I mean, if you remember, so much was different about that, how we viewed those teams. The Bills were 3-0. The Ravens were 1-2, which I kind of forgot that they started off that slow because they lost to the Chiefs, and then they lost to the Raiders early on. And then they were in this game. People were saying, okay, if the Ravens lose, it's really tough. They destroyed the Bills in that game. Although I will say the Bills kind of got back in it. They got down 11 points in the third quarter and had a nice drive going, and then they tried a trick play and Josh Allen fumbled, and then the Ravens kind of never looked back from there. But here's an interesting stat I'll throw at you. So weeks 1 through 10, the Ravens EPA defensively was 27th in the league and 30th in drop back EPA. After that game, they had a bye week. I believe beat the, or was it a bye week, or it might have been a Thursday game because they beat the Bengals, but it was a close game, and both defenses struggled, and they reworked some things. They put Marlon Humphrey in the slot. They put Kyle Hamilton back as more of a free safety role. Since then, they are first in both total EPA and drop back EPA. If you think this is a bad Ravens defense, they're completely different. Now, the funny thing though is that the way that they were last time was how they destroyed the Bills. So I guess, I mean, you have to keep doing what's working now, but that's just kind of, I don't know, it's a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah. There is a lot of interesting stuff there. Like you said, they reshuffled a lot of the deck there. I think huge shout out along with, obviously Humphrey and Hamilton get a ton of credit. They are very good, but like Nate Wiggins too, stepping into that role and being a very good outside corner when they move Humphrey into the slot. I think the interesting thing about that game though, having rewatched it and all that, especially compared to, as you mentioned, those numbers of the Ravens' defensive performance up to that point, they really struggled the first good chunk of the season with their secondary, which is so uncharacteristic of what Baltimore was for basically all of our lifetimes, it feels like, right? So, but the thing that really shocked me in that game was how difficult it was for Buffalo's receivers to get open. It just it felt like in that game, especially, it was a night game. There was a lot of energy. Ravens just said, you are not getting separation on us. If Josh Allen makes like 10 amazing throws, he can do it. Great. But it's not going to be any of these receivers making it easier for him. And even with that struggling Ravens secondary being able to do that, it puts me in a position now where I'm like, okay, yes, that game was a little fluky, I think, at times. Maybe the Ravens, in a different scenario, that game ends up a little bit closer. But how does Buffalo find a way to get separation against these guys when they're playing much better than they were at that time?
Well, I have one way, which is you have Brandon Stevens, who's the other outside corner. With Wiggins, Wiggins and Stevens are the two outside corners. Marlon Humphrey's been more of the slot guy as of late. I don't know. Put Keon Coleman on one side and Amari Cooper on the other, and then just throw to whoever Brandon Stevens covers. Just throw it to him all the time. Like he hasn't been great this season. He's kind of the one way you can beat them. That's the one weakness. I think just make them put two guys over there, and then hope that you can then work over the middle.
Yeah, that's the argument for sure, and he is good. Or obviously he hasn't been good, is what I meant. And that is the mismatch you're looking for. But part of the Ravens reshuffling is that they now have Kyle Hamilton and the other safety that can play deep.
Darius Washington.
Yeah, Adarius Washington. That's what I'm looking for. Yes. They have two guys that can also play deep at times. So it's not necessarily as easy. Like, you're not going to get a bunch of downfield passes on this Ravens defense anymore, it feels like. So, yes, you can do that. I think you can hit the guy in spurts and create those mismatches. But, are you going to be able to create 10, 12 play drives off of basically targeting one guy the entire time? I don't. That feels tough. That feels tough if that's your only solution. And then if the Ravens adjust, what's your plan B at that point? Other than if they start double teaming that guy or putting like overloading help to that side, then maybe you take chances the other way.
Yeah. And I definitely don't want to be taking. And the other thing too is, Khalil Shakir is such a big part of this team, but with Marlon Humphrey covering him, which actually did a lot the first time, Humphrey really won that matchup. So that's he's a really good corner. He's an All-Pro for a reason. The Kyle, here's a way the Bills can have success. They have Josh Allen. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? Like that's I feel like sometimes I go wrong with these previews where I try to think of all these little intricate details, and then like last week, it's like, well, like if the Broncos do this and they do, and then Josh Allen just running around for 10 seconds and then finding an open guy. Like he breaks the rules.
He does break the rules. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely that thing. But that was the problem in that last game, is that it didn't work the last time, right? He struggled having opportunities in that game. So having Josh Allen is a huge factor in this game. And not to mention, like, as much as we just said that everything that the Ravens defense is doing well, they defend the run really well too. That's another thing. They're the second best run defense in football throughout the regular season. Their pass rush is not as great. And that's the big part is, I think once that game got a little bit carried away, Josh Allen was not running as much as he probably normally would compared to a playoff game where he's basically going to use his legs as much as he needs to win the game, right? And if you can't get to Josh Allen's going to make you pay. And this Buffalo offensive line is still very, very good too. So that is going to be the interesting element. Like, and then, yeah, if Josh Allen's able to buy time, if he's able to evade this pass rush, if he's able to make plays with his legs, that makes it harder to cover too. So yeah, he can absolutely break the game by himself. And that's the huge part. I mean, that's been a lot of Buffalo's offense this season, is that he's capable of doing that at almost any time. And they've been able to run the ball well and all that. So he's going to have to play. Let's put it this way. Josh Allen has to be better than Lamar Jackson for the Bills to win, but that's not necessarily the case for the Ravens to win with Lamar Jackson, correct?
Yeah, I think I agree. And I think that, I mean, Bills fans have been saying this all season with their MVP argument, right? Of, hey, like, Allen is kind of doing more of this by himself. Yeah, I completely agree. One thing we have to talk about is Lamar hasn't always performed great in the big moments. I think that's a fair thing to bring up. I'm going to say one thing before we get to that topic. Kyle, can we just like be cool about this game? Like, if both these quarterbacks play well, one's going to have to lose. Can we just like be cool about the fact that like someone has to lose this game?
Yes. No, we can't, but we should.
Yes. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. If someone plays horrible, okay, then we can be obnoxious. We like to be obnoxious, but like, let's not just jump to obnoxious.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like that too, but it's never going to work out that way. So, I'm not holding out any hope. But so we've done a lot of Bills offense versus Ravens defense. And as I just illustrated all the matchup things I'm concerned about for Buffalo, I haven't even got to the biggest issue I have with Bills in this game. They have not been good stopping the run all season.
Yeah.
Mainly because they try and dedicate a lot to their secondary. They have a good pass rush, and they dedicate a lot to their secondary because their secondary is not that good. They're not good at stopping the run this season. By PFF grades, I think they were 26th in run defense this year. 27th, excuse me. So not even worse. That is a recipe for disaster against this team and what we saw last week, because as we saw with Baltimore, they're not messing around anymore in these playoff games. They're not doing anything fancy. They're saying we are going to run Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson as much as we need to win. We are going to run that read option play until you prove you can stop it. And will Buffalo stop it all game is something that I'm very, very concerned about, because I don't know if they can.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if it's like a video game where you're looking like the weak spots, like where you have the matchup advantages, it's just like all into red for Buffalo. Like, it's just like there's no like good option here. You're right. The Bills, I think their overall run metrics might be okay, but you're exactly correct. Where it's like the play-by-play stuff, it's just not good. I mean, at the end of the day, teams get down against Buffalo, they have to throw to keep up with them, right?
Mhm.
So you're right that the last time these two teams played each other, Lamar only played 8 possessions. They put into backups for the last two, and one of those was a fumble. So if you say 7 possessions, he had five. The Ravens had 5 points per drive, which is like double a good score. Like that's just an absurd number. Yeah, I don't see how the Bills are going to stop the run in this game, and I also don't really see how the Bills are going to, defend the play action pass in this game, even if Say Flowers isn't there. I think it's going to be a really tough situation. Like I think I kind of feel like what they have to do is every time they get to Lamar Jackson, try to hit the ball out, and I guess same thing with Derrick Henry, try to limit the damage on each of these runs, and then try to get turnovers, try to get penalties, make them have to go 14 plays to get touchdowns.
Yeah. And I don't love the Buffalo matchup with these tight ends against the safeties and the linebackers for them either. I don't think
Yeah.
that's a good scenario for them either. So it's just a hard time envisioning the matchups right now for this team. So Buffalo can absolutely win because Josh Allen's amazing. I think Ravens are a better team, and that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. And I feel like I've kind of given away my pick here, but that's just kind of where I'm at with this game right now. I think it still should be very fun. I think the elements of that are going to be very interesting. And then the Bills obviously having the home crowd and Josh Allen might make it a variable that could make the difference in this game. It's just going to be. It just feels like it's a lot to overcome right now, man. I think that the one thing we are concerned about with the Ravens is their level of inconsistency, but they just look so locked in these last few weeks, and especially the start of that Pittsburgh game. And it just feels like that is a massive, massive advantage for them right now.
Yeah, you brought up the weather. It should be somewhere in between 20 to 10 by the time they're playing. There's also a chance of rain, or I guess snow in that case. So like that's a factor as well, which you have to feel favors the team that likes to run more. Kyle, the Josh Allen stuff still scares me. I'm gonna pick the Ravens, but I'm only putting 1 point on it.
I got the Ravens in 6 points.
Wow. Okay, gotta take a chance at some point, I suppose.
Yeah, taking the chance here. I think the Ravens are the more complete team. I think they got the more complete offense and defense. I think the secondary has played extremely well of late, like you said, and they played really well against this Bills team, as we said, when they weren't even playing that well. So I just like the Ravens matchups here. And, you mentioned like the one thing is like, could it be a game script thing where Buffalo gets up and then teams have to throw on Buffalo when they're trailing? The Ravens don't have to throw the ball when they're trailing because they're so explosive in the run game. They can still run the ball and do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a very, very tough matchup for Buffalo, and it's hard to see the scenario other than Josh Allen having the game of his life, which is possible. He's capable of doing that, and yeah, I think it's tough.
A very weird comment in the chat, but that just happened. But
Go Pack.
uh,
You see first round?
yeah, I don't know. Kyle, also I should mention just for anyone who's new here, the way our points work is that we're not saying that's how many points these teams will win by. We're saying we have 16 points each. That's what we're betting on each of these games. So it's a convoluted scoring system we have. But Kyle, it's a bit of a hot take because again, I like not to do the whole. I'm sure this has been all over Fox Sports today, but like or this week, but like Lamar Jackson does have a tendency to not play great in these moments. Josh Allen does have a tendency to play great in these moments, and it's in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean that is the concern we're riding with. Obviously, is Lamar has not had his best games, but I also just think if they keep it on the ground for as much as they need to, run the play action, like it should be pretty easy for him, to be honest. Like, I don't know if this is the game that's going to trip him up in the playoffs again. I just feel like this is a matchup that's just catered to him.
Yeah,
Like, there's
I
just
think it's a good
not,
matchup too. But
yeah, it's just not a ton of speed on this Buffalo defense that really puts fear in me, and I think he's going to be able to run whenever he wants.
okay, well, hot takes already from Kyle here. 3 games left to talk about. Where do you want to go here? Since you're trailing, I don't know if you have any strategy of which games you want to give me first, or have us talk about first. Is there one you're interested in?
Um, I guess the next one for me would be the next closest spread. Let's go Eagles, and we'll do the Sunday games first, I guess, then finish off with Saturday. So we'll go Eagles, Rams.
Yeah, this one should be interesting as well. I mean, I do think I don't know. There's a lot to talk about with these two teams. The the Rams are unique because, as I said, they've all of a sudden this defense that has not played well all year has maybe found something, or maybe it's been their opponents. I don't know, and that's why predicting the playoffs is so hard. Of what do we expect? Because this Rams defense as a whole has not been great over the course of the season. It has been great as of late, and even the coverage unit, well, I don't think it's been perfect, has played much better. Um, let's start here, Kyle. These two teams played each other a little bit ago. Saquon Barkley had, I want to pull up the exact numbers, but he had maybe his best game of the season in a season that has made him an MVP candidate. Here it is. So he had 255 rushing yards on 26 carries and a pair of touchdowns. He also had 47 receiving yards. So he had over 300 total yards in this game. That's not ideal if you're a Rams fan.
No, it is not. It's a huge concern, obviously. It's another one that feels like a bad matchup. Granted, as you said, the Rams defense has played much better of late, basically since that game. However, as you illustrated, they had the Saints game on the road. They got torched in that Bills game, but that was a lot of Josh Allen. There's no Josh Allen in this game for sure. The 49ers in a weather game, the Jets, the Cardinals, that their season was basically over at that point. And then the Seahawks when they benched everybody. That was a different scenario. And then they played very well against the Vikings again. But as you said, there was a lot of opportunities to throw in that game. And I don't think the quarterback from Minnesota there took advantage of enough of that. This is a really tough matchup again. As you mentioned, the offensive line, the defensive line for Los Angeles has been really good. I think the one thing I'm concerned about mostly, as you mentioned, the Saquon numbers in that game, it's kind of a small defensive line. It feels small, and they're going against Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, and this wrecking crew that is Philadelphia's offensive line. And I'm just concerned. Like, I know this defensive line has played very, very well, but I don't know if they're going to be ready for this matchup. This is a whole different ballgame for me.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the nice thing is like, okay, if Hurts holds on to the ball for a while, they could get there in pressure wise. But like, you're right, like Jared Verse, his power has been so impressive with his size this season. But like, he's not overpowering Jordan Mailata. He's just not like that's just not an option. So what do you do? Historically, a good offensive line against a good defensive line, the offensive line wins. Now, it doesn't always work out that way, but that's usually what happens. So that's where I mean, I think where you have trouble there if you're a Rams fan. I kind of think, I mean, yeah, I mean, what even is I guess here's the one thing is you have to think if you're the Rams, you're going all out to stop the run. You're stacking the box. You're doing whatever you can to stop the run, which means that for Jalen Hurts, you throw the ball down the field to A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown had over 100 yards last time they played. You have to assume that he's going to have to hit on he might not have to hit on one of those plays. They'll try Saquon still, even with a stacked box. But you assume A.J. Brown will at least have opportunities. That's the other issue and why this Eagles team is so good. They have a way to win either way. But we saw Jalen Hurts play a little bit shaky last week. If you can maybe get him to miss on some of those throws, if maybe A.J. Brown's focused on his book and not focused on playing, like, can you make it happen that way? I don't know, but it feels like that's a key matchup, and I don't know who you trust on the Rams to stop A.J. Brown.
Yeah, it's definitely a scenario. It's definitely a situation that the Rams are going to have to solve because, yeah, I don't think Jalen Hurts has played that well last week, and I've been kind of up and down on him throughout the year. I do think the one thing is if you isolate A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in single coverage because you're going all to stop the run, Jalen Hurts is very much good enough to make those throws. Like he's going to make those throws, and those receivers are going to make really good plays. So, yeah, I think both of them are a tough riddle to solve for Los Angeles, and we're definitely going to test the depth of how good this defense is now, based on their development from week 1 to now, because it's just a whole different ballgame than it feels like the last time these two played. And I'm still not entirely convinced that the Rams are going to be ready for this matchup exactly. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the defense performs and what the scheme is. Like you said, are they going to throw everything in the box and just hope for the best? I don't know if that's even going to work. I think they got to mix it up and try and catch them by surprise.
Yeah, could be a bit of a. It won't be quite as cold as I was talking about with Buffalo, but it will be a bit of a cold weather game as well. So seems like playable, but not like not quite as you know devastating. You'll still be able to throw the ball, but if it's 30 and raining, I mean, how is Stafford going to react to that? We saw he didn't react too well in the San Francisco game that was raining. Um,
Mhm.
Let's talk about Stafford though, because I do think the way that the Rams win this game is by outscoring the Eagles here. I think it's by being able to
Yeah.
move the ball. Sean McVay is very good at if he can get a ground game going, which he might be able to do. They did have a solid ground game last time they played. If you can get a ground game going, get the play actions off of it, trust Puka Nakua. Again, I don't know if that's quite as explosive, but maybe if you can keep it close there, win the turnover battle, that to me seems like the key to success.
Yeah, I mean Stafford played though the one thing too is that Stafford did play well. Um Stafford did play well the last time these two teams played. They threw the ball pretty well in that game. They couldn't keep up with the Eagles in that one, obviously, because Saquon went crazy, but they played pretty well offensively, I think, in that game. And for everything that the Vic Fangio scheme works really well for, and they got the personnel to run it now. They have an excellent defensive line. They have great secondary players. They do lose N'Kobe Dean this week, as our super chat here highlights. However, they still got Zach Bond, and they still got some horses there in the middle that can make some plays. But yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles are going to do what they do. They're going to bring four, rush four. They're going to drop into their zone coverage for the most part. They will mix it up, but that's basically a lot of what they do. And Stafford's really good at reading zone defenses. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league for a reason. So yeah, I think it's a situation where I think Stafford can move the ball. And if you're arguing the Rams, it's the fact that Stafford is the best quarterback in this game, and they have talented skill position players that could take advantage too.
Yeah, we have the super chat that you brought up is the Kobe Dean injury equals legacy Kyron Williams game. Yeah, I mean, I listen. They ran the ball okay last time. Losing a really good linebacker should make it easier. I guess Oren Burks seems like he's going to be the guy for Philadelphia. I don't, just looking at his PFF grades, I haven't done a deep dive. Apparently, he's done all right since when he's played his 183 snaps this year. So we'll see how it goes, but. Yeah, I mean that you're right. That is the key to success, I think. We can get into the picks. Kyle, I'm not banking on it. I think the Eagles win this game, and I'm going to put 7 points on it.
7 points. All right. I'm going to go with 4 points for the Eagles. I'm with you too. I think they should absolutely win this game. And yeah, I think that they got the pieces on both sides of the ball.
Okay, so you're putting four. So the best you can do here is make up the 3 points here.
That's what we're hoping for at minimum.
Okay, you're not going to take a chance. Maybe try to only put one on it. See if you can make it up here.
Nope, we're okay.
Okay,
We're good. I'm
all
sticking
right.
to I'm playing my game. You do you, and then the points will work itself out.
Okay, well that's definitely not how this game works. It's completely built so that you kind of have to play against each other.
Well, I didn't do enough for that, so let's just let's
Okay,
focus.
the whole
I'll
reason why
focus
I
on
always go first. Okay, all right. Well, again, we'll see how this goes. Maybe in the conference championship, then I suppose. Kyle, let's keep it moving. Do you want to go to Texans Chiefs?
Yeah, let's do Texans Chiefs.
Okay, so everyone is saying, Chiefs don't stand a chance. Everyone's saying Texans don't stand a chance. The Texans have made the playoffs. I believe it's 8 times in their history. Or am I getting this wrong? It's all but 2 times they made the playoffs. They've won in wildcard weekend, but they've never won in the divisional round. The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes has never lost before getting to the conference championship game in his career since being a starter, which is crazy to think about. There's not even been one like injury riddled year where they didn't make it. Kyle, is there hope for Houston here?
It's not out of the realm of possibility. Like,
Mhm.
I see the matchup talk where I could talk myself into the Texans competing in this game. I think that's what you have to talk yourself into, because I do see scenarios where I look at the aspect of you have this secondary that's one of the best in the league, I think, at this point, with the corners in Derek Stingley Jr., Kamari Lassiter playing extremely well. You have you have the edge rushers that in theory could contain Mahomes in a situation where he's trying to scramble and all that, to the point where I see a scenario for the Texans to be able to frustrate and maybe bottle up this Chiefs offense. but it still feels like a lot to ask because it's easy to win a lot of hypothetical scenarios and a lot of hypothetical matchups. The issue is for everything that we just said, the Texans did really well in the last game against the Chargers. If you get to a third down scenario, you can absolutely man up the Chiefs and hope for the best in those scenarios. But that also involves you getting to Patrick Mahomes and bringing him down the backfield for a stop. And that's just something throughout his career he's been the best in the world at. So it's going to be a tough scenario, I think, for the Texans. And while I like some of their matchup situations, I like those edge rushers against the tackles for the Chiefs. I like how they match up man-to-man in a third down scenario. It still involves stopping 15 in the backfield and containing him and forcing a tough throw. And that's still a situation I don't love for the Texans to be able to do because 15 is the best in the world.
One of the really interesting, and part of what's tough about this too is we want to talk matchups, but just a couple weeks ago, the Chiefs beat the Texans. Now, I had kind of misremembered that game. My memory was that the Chiefs were pretty handedly winning, but the Texans had the ball down 8 with 4 minutes left in the game. Like that was a game. Now the Chiefs were the better team in it throughout. One of the issues is that a big player in that game was Tank Dell. He was like a real factor, and now he won't be playing. So that's tough. But I mean, the thing with the Chiefs offense, if we want to start there, there are some issues. I guess the one thing is they like to get rid of the ball quickly on these man coverage plays. They run a lot of pick plays. Like honestly, that's what Houston has to spend the most of their time practicing. Is just make sure we can get rub routes and pick plays down. Let's get our switches through and let's cleanly be able to get the right guy on the right player because it's so hard to do against Andy Reid and this Chiefs team.
Yep. No, without a doubt. It's going to be a tough situation for the matchup. I do think that because if I'm not mistaken, I think that was one of the first games of Al-Shaair's suspension. Having him back in the linebacker room is going to help a lot, I think, too. But it's still one of those things that it just takes constant communication. And the Chiefs are just so good at creating mismatches in those situations, right? Even if you think you have everything right, they're going to find a way to create a mismatch, whether it's through a pick play, whether it's through some subtle route combination, and create what they want and create that space. And then Mahomes is going to hit the guy on target every time.
Yeah. It's difficult. You brought up the offensive line. That is the one thing you look at is so the Texans defensive line is so good on the edge with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, but you have the tackle play for the Chiefs that hasn't been great. Now, Jawan Taylor's an all right pass blocker. I mean, we've done a ton of Jawan Taylor stuff over the years. The left tackle thing is interesting. It still hasn't been announced who will play left tackle. Is DJ Humphries going to do it? Are they going to put Joe Thuney there, who's been he played that last time they played actually at left tackle, and then have Mike Caliendo at left guard. Caliendo hasn't been great at guard, and also I was curious, so I had to do the numbers myself, but Joe Thuney's average PFF grade when he plays guard is 73.4 this season. It drops to 58.9 when he's playing left tackle. Now, that was a 3-game sample size, and when he played against Houston, he actually did all right, but maybe there should be a weakness there that the Texans can exploit.
There should be a weakness. I think it's going to be Thuney, honestly. I do. Because, I don't know. I think I saw enough from DJ Humphries for his career at this point. I think it was a good risk to take, bringing him in and taking a chance on it because that left tackle situation was so bad. But I just don't think he's up to speed for a divisional round playoff game, honestly. And then the team took 3 weeks off. So I think that's going to be even harder to then ramp up for a divisional round playoff game for a older player like that who's barely played this season. So I think it's going to be Thuney. And yeah, as much as I think Thuney is a terrific football player, he's a terrific guard. It's just a different matchup, and he's not as big, so he's got to deal with the hands and the length of a guy like Hunter or Will Anderson Jr. And I think that's a really tough matchup. Now, granted, they still have to get to the quarterback, they still have to bring him down, all that stuff, but that just feels like a massive, massive advantage for the Texans defense.
And you're taking away your best guard in doing that, right? That's the other aspect is now you have Mike Caliendo, who's just not as good of a guard. So instead of having Thuney, Humphrey, and Smith, the best interior in football, you don't have the best interior in football now, although still pretty good with Humphrey and Smith over there. But yeah, I mean, that's the concern. I think to me, the biggest concern I have with the Chiefs heading into this game is they just took, 3.5 weeks off of playing football because the last time they played was on Christmas. You're now in a situation where you're going to have to. I mean, football is all about timing. It's all about getting rhythm down. Do you
Mhm.
get off to a slow start? And can Houston take advantage if they do get off to a slow start?
It's going to be the interesting question because we haven't really seen this before, right? Like we have seen teams take multiple weeks off, obviously, but this feels like a very extreme scenario because they played the shortened schedule with the holiday games and all that, and then took the last week of the season off or whatever it was. So their last football game with all of their guys was December 25th, Christmas Day. Um, that is a very, very long time. And in that game, like it was a blowout, so like they weren't like firing off everybody and playing their best at the end of that game. It's just not how human nature works. So since they've played like really engaged football, it's been a very long time, and that's going to be a very hard thing to adjust to. I think in the playoffs, I think everybody just says, "Yeah, we're going to ramp up." That's what you do. You lock in, the switch turns on, but it's not the easiest thing to do all the time for sure.
Yeah, right. Just because it happened last year doesn't mean it's always going to happen every year. Kyle. So the other side of the ball, the Nico Collins needs to get like at least 10 targets in this game, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's gonna have to get the ball a lot. I think the tough thing for this Texans offense is as good as they played in some high pressure situations. I think last week, it's still asking a lot for them to perform in this game. Without Tank Dell out there, you're probably looking at Dalton Schultz as the number 2 guy, and I don't love the matchup for him against this Chiefs linebacker room of Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, and Leo Chenal. I think that's a tough matchup for them. So it's going to have to be Nico Collins, who's one of the best receivers in the league, honestly, one of the most underrated players in the league, winning his matchup against a McDuffie, against the Watson, whoever is thrown at him, he's got to win that one-on-one matchup.
Yes. I think again another wild comment in the chat. Our chat's needs to get it together. But the Texans. I mean, they ran the ball okay last time. Kyle, here's something I want to see. I want to see CJ Stroud run the ball in this game. He had 2 rushes for 23 yards. I want to see him use his legs because the Chiefs are going to play man coverage. I think that has to be a weapon here.
Yeah. I mean, he's never been one to do it. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's been
But he's
very
good at it.
good. Yeah, he's been very good at buying time and using his legs to do that, but he's never been a straight runner. And you know, it is one of those things where like it's got to be all hands on deck. You got to do whatever you can to win this kind of game. You're going against a
Mm-hmm.
15-2 team that lost one game with their starters in. And yeah, I think that they really got to match up well, and he's got to take advantage of the situations because the last thing they need is to get in third down situations and let Steve Spagnuolo do his thing, where he's just going to throw a bunch of bodies on the line of scrimmage. You got to guess who's rushing and who's not, and you're going to get stuck in some mismatches at the line of scrimmage and have to scramble and make a play.
Yeah, Stroud's numbers are mostly the same, whether he's getting blitzed or not getting blitzed, but it's still, you're right. You don't want to be in those obvious passing situations. If you are, throw it up to Nico Collins. Hopefully that can work, but it is difficult. I don't know. I mean, and the other thing, too, is Stroud threw 2 interceptions last game. Can't be doing that because the Chiefs aren't going to give you, Mahomes will give you 1 opportunity, maybe 2 opportunities, but like they're not going to give you that many. So you have to make sure that you take care of the football. I feel like Houston has a chance in this game. I really do. I think if they can protect the football, they can move the ball with Nico Collins enough. And if the Chiefs get off to a slow enough start, like, again, the Chiefs are favored. They deserve to be favored. I think, I actually think both these 2 lines are kind of crazy. The 2 biggest spreads. I don't know. I think Houston has a chance. I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm not picking the Chiefs. I'm not picking the Texans to win, but I don't think it's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy just because you could see the mismatches in your head, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the game script for the Texans winning this game is CJ Stroud takes care of the football, like 1 turnover or less sort of thing. Nico Collins has to have like a $120 receiving, and then it involves the edge rushers in the corners, which is one of the best corner duos in the game and one of the best edge rushers duos in the game, winning their mismatches, which they have advantages. Even though this Chiefs receiving room has played much better of late with guys getting healthy, getting Hollywood Brown back. He played in the last time these 2 teams played, but now he's kind of back in the offense in the groove. And having those guys, it's still going to involve Stanley and Lassiter winning that matchup, which they are better than their counterparts.
They are, but again, it's they might be getting blocked by Travis Kelsey, 9/10 of a yard down the field, and now doesn't matter how good you are.
Yeah, and they got to be prepared for anything because Andy Reid's going to throw the bag at them. It feels like.
Yes. Kyle, I'm picking the Chiefs to win. I'm putting 4 points on it.
I got 4 points too.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they're the better team, and generally the better teams win. And they have Patrick Mahomes, which is usually a good bet to make the conference championship.
Yes, has worked out. And the Texans, again, have never made the conference championship. We'll see if that changes, though. I think it could be a fun game. It also, again, everything we talk about, there's just the added factor of also the Chiefs are playing.
Yes. Yeah. They find a way to win these games, man. They continue to do it. And even when the last time these two teams played, they did it. So without a doubt.
Yes, of course. They played in the division round a handful of years ago when Mahomes won his first Super Bowl. Texans were up 24-0, and they didn't even keep that lead until halftime.
That would be a funny callback if they did it again.
Yeah, they should just do that. Yeah, just spot them 24 points. See what they can get away with.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they're going to want to do that this year.
Maybe not. Kyle, let's talk some balls. Final game, balls at Lions. The Commanders 10-point underdogs against. I get it. The Lions are great. Kyle, the biggest negative feeling I've had towards the Lions all season has been how bad the Vikings looked on Monday. I'm like, oh, maybe Detroit isn't that good.
Hey, NFC North is 0-2 in the playoffs. Could they be the SEC of the NFL?
I had a weird NFC North thought of. I was trying to remember who they played. So they played the AFC South, which I feel like getting that probably boost up your. That has to help your records a lot. And they also played the NFC West with the Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals, and 49ers. So I'm playing the Rams didn't help the Vikings on Monday. But I don't know, maybe their records got a little inflated. I don't think it's the case of the Lions, but for the other two.
Yeah. It's possible. It is a theory.
I think, to be clear, I think the Lions are as good as we all think they are. I'm just saying for the Vikings and Packers, that is my thought. If I say one wrong thing and the Lions fans get mad at me, Kyle, they're a fickle bunch.
Yeah. They're ready. They're ready to see this team compete. And look,
so am I. It should be fun.
They had a harder schedule this season because they were the 1 seed and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, they did. Fair.
They played tougher games. And they should win this game, honestly. If we're looking at it yes, the biggest concern for me in this game is, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face. They're going against the best quarterback in the conference. Maybe the best player in the conference. Who knows? That is a tough matchup. That is something that always scares you, especially for a 10-point underdog, to have the best player in the game. And Jaden Daniels can absolutely be the best player in this game and win the Commanders the game. But he's got to score a lot of points to do it, man, because I just look at the matchups of these two teams, and this is not a strong Commanders defense. They capitalized on a turnover, it felt like, last week, and that was the difference in a game with a lot of long drives. And I look at this matchup, and while I have concerns for Detroit's defense going forward, I think they should score a lot of points in this game, and it's going to be very tough for the Commanders to keep up with it.
Yeah, the main reason why I think 10 points is maybe disrespectful to the Commanders is simply because I don't think this game's going to have that much of a that many possessions. It's why I think people keep betting the over on the Commanders. I'm like, stop doing that, because they're they run these long possessions. The games end up being much more lower scoring. But I think here's the pathway to the Commanders winning, because obviously the Lions are favored. Obviously, we're both going to pick the Lions to win this game, I assume. The concern, and I think the way that you win if you're the Commanders, is Jaden Daniels does such a good job of protecting the football, and they run these long drives. Can they get these long drives? Can they score against a depleted Lions defense? And then if you get one mistake or two mistakes by the Lions, could that be enough just to sink them, as it was with Tampa Bay last week, again, I think the Lions are a much better team than Tampa Bay, but that was a game that realistically, on a play-by-play basis, it was, even if not slightly leading Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay made a couple key mistakes. Washington's not going to do that.
Yeah, and they got to capitalize on those long drives. The big thing with Washington for me in this game, and they've had random stretches where They're electric, obviously. They score in the red zone. But for the most part, this team has settled for a lot of field goals this season. And, I understand. Still, points is better than no points, even on those long drives. But they can't settle for field goals in this game because, like you said, even though maybe they find a way to get a couple stops on the Lions, it's just not going to be enough if you're not getting touchdowns. And so they have to find a way to convert these long drives into touchdowns like they did in the second half of that game against Tampa Bay, and unlike they did in the first half.
Yeah. They don't do though is when it's a 4th and short, settle for field goals. Then they will make sure that they can, either go for it or not. Of course, last game against Tampa Bay, they did not punt. Kyle, over under 1 punt in this game.
I guess I'll take the over, but
Okay.
it could be close.
I think if it's 1.5, maybe you'd think about it a little longer.
Yeah, maybe two might be too much.
Yeah, I think so. I think if the over under was 2 punts, I would just take the under just for fun.
Yeah, why not?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to see either team stop the other. But I will say, at times we have seen this Lions defense play really well, especially in their last game against Minnesota. Granted, they're not going against Sam Darnold in this game; they're going against Jaden Daniels, but they have managed to scrap together. It feels like enough of a pass rush and timing these blitzes. It feels like to perfection at times to make plays happen defensively. And yeah, I mean, it could be the difference where if they just get 1 to 2 stops a game against any of these two teams, then it's enough to win the Super Bowl because their offense is just going to score so much. So that's just kind of the path it feels like. They just have to find a way to get together 1 or 2 big stops and then let the offense do its thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess so. That's the thing is the Lions, they love the blitz. They blitz. It's top 5 in football. I think part of it could come down to like, can Jaden Daniels, hit the throws down the field? This Lions secondary is really odd because you look at like their numbers against man when they're playing man, and their secondary is really good. And then look at them playing zone, they're very bad. So I get why they're like, well, just not play zone and play man and blitz all the time, and it works. But again, when you got Terry McLaurin, it's harder to do that. And I do think that it's probably a good strategy. Keep Daniels in the pocket by blitzing, force him to throw down the field. It's what Tampa Bay tried to do, but then McLaurin had some plays. So that's the issue.
Yeah. And McLaurin's got to have a big game, it feels like, in this one. They got to create separation against these corners. And they just have to. If you give Jaden Daniels a slimmer of a chance, he's going to find a way to make the throw because he is so good at those downfield passes, connecting on his guys, and making the perfect throws, it feels like, at the right time.
Kyle, do the Commanders get a stop in this game? I mean, that's kind of the thing. We're all dancing around it, like trying to give the Commanders a chance. But like, I don't know. Like, the only thing I can think of is the Commanders actually do blitz a little bit. Now, Goff's fine against the blitz. He's actually a little better against the blitz. But if you can pressure him, you force the halfbacks to block. That's what I always say. Do this up the middle blitzes, force the halfbacks to block. You can beat them there. Goff's numbers do go down when he's under pressure. I mean, everyone's numbers go down when they're under pressure, but him even more so than your average player because he's the second. His passer rating is second best in football when he's kept clean. It's 9th best in football when he's under pressure. You got to get pressure on him. I think that's the only way I can see this working, probably with blitzes up the middle.
Yeah, the tough thing is that they're so bad at stopping the run. Like, you have to figure out how to stop that before you even worry about blitzing and getting after the quarterback, because that's what they just do so well is they run their play action, and then it's like, oh, there's a crossing route 30 yards down the field, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown with nobody around him. Now what do we do? That's basically how the Lions just feast on you. And yeah, so I think they could throw bodies at the line of scrimmage and blitz and do all that thing, but it's going to come down to stopping the run first, because if you can't stop the run, you're not going to be able to get after Jared Goff. And if this Lions defense or this Lions offense is unpredictable because you're struggling to stop the run and you don't know when they're going to drop back and throw, then it just makes it 10 times harder and your job is that much more difficult. So I think that's how they have to do it. They have to get pressure on them, but it's going to involve it's going to involve some good fortune, I think. And it feels like it's still a big mountain to climb.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say, I think the one way where I think about if Washington wins this game, if you come to the future and tell me, hey, Bet the house on Washington. They win straight up. I'm probably not betting the house. I might put some money down. But if I would, and you ask me, and I'm wondering, okay, how did it happen? My assumption is the Washington won the turnover battle because Goff, he's not bad at turning the ball over. It's just like it's a thing he does. Like that's kind of his one negative is like he's kind of middle of the road in turnover worthy plays. If you can get the turnover battle won, if you can get two interceptions, let's say, Daniels is so good at protecting the football, and part of it being they run the ball so much, so there's less danger there. Part of me just wonders, like, is that a way that you can get this, get the win? Can you win? Again, if it's an 8 possession game and you win the turnover battle, that matters a lot more than if it's a 12 possession game.
Yeah. I mean, that is the way. I mean, that's kind of the argument against like the Goff situation, right? Is like he's had these random games where he's just had some absolutely terrible performances with taking care of the football, but you could also argue that like his worst performance of the season as far as taking care of the football, they won 26-23 against Houston, which is also a very good team. So yeah, you could dominate the turnover battle and still lose the game because that's what the Lions do. So yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Like this team has lost one game since week 2, and they lost it because Josh Allen outscored them and the Bills' offense outscored them. You have to outscore them to win. That is the only argument.
You're absolutely correct. But also the Lions got off to a slow start in that game offensively, right? I think they like the first 2 drives, they weren't able to get anything going. And then that was kind of it. I think my point is it's a low possession game. And I don't think that they could like if Jared Goff turns the ball over 5 times, that means they might only have 3 or 4 other possessions left in the game. Like that's part of it. Yeah.
I mean, granted, they could still score 28 points from that, but it's still not going to be guaranteed. So, yeah, I think it is it's going to be a very interesting scenario. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to can they score points? And yeah, if Jared Goff does turn over the ball, it does create a different element to this game where they could absolutely lose it. But that has to happen.
Yeah. I'm not predicting a major upset here. I am going to put my remaining 4 points on the Lions to win. But again, hopefully these 4 games, Kyle, we need some competitive games here. I mean, last week was tough.
Yeah. I got 2 points on the Lions. So
wow. So this is the game you have the least amount. Is this because you're trying to come back against me, or is this because you actually feel like the Commanders have a real chance here?
Well, I only have 2 points left.
Okay, but I'm assuming you planned this out ahead of you didn't more just throwing points around and realize you had 2 points left.
No, I mean I did plan this out. Jaden Daniels scares me. Like that is a big thing. Like I think the quarterback matchups is the biggest concern. And as much as this Lions defense has had its moments and played well, I still think it's not a very strong defense without Aiden Hutchinson and all their starters out. And they can absolutely score. And so if the Commanders score, like you said, those long drawn out drives keeps the offense off the field for the Lions, then anything's possible.
Yeah. Kyle, so I'm trying to do the math in my head here. I believe I'm doing this correct. The way you have it currently worked out is that no matter what happens, I will still be in the lead heading into conference championship. There is no pathway to taking the lead this week.
I'm playing the long game. We're good.
Okay. There is a way that you could drop another 5 points here if the closest game in the divisional round goes the other way.
Listen, long game here. I know what I'm doing. I got this. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I feel confident in the Ravens coming through. And then if that happens and maybe some things bounce my way, then I'll be within striking distance next week.
Yes, that's good because there's then you have a whole 3 games left to be able to. I think is your plan just hoping that you can get the Super Bowl? I get the Super Bowl wrong at this point.
No, I'm gonna ride. I got picks lined up for next week already. I'm already I already feel like I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna have it gamed my direction. So let's do it.
You're just so confident in your conference championship picks that you're punting on this week.
Absolutely. I'm just going to try and get a little bit closer, and then all of a sudden I'm going to strike. It's going to happen.
Okay, yes. So if you're a Team Kyle fan, you want the Eagles to lose, you want the Rams to win, and then you want the Commanders to win. If both of those 2 things happen, then I will only be up 2 points as long as the Ravens also win. And then we both pick the same amount of points for the Chiefs. So, I don't know. Kyle, where are you at with this season? I think it's been not an A+ season, right?
It hasn't. Honestly, like just a weird football season. It feels like in general. It just not as many competitive games as it feels like we usually have week to week, doesn't it? Like,
You know what the issue is? The Lions were too good. Like the NFC isn't supposed to have like a consistent good team. Like that's
yeah.
what the AFC does. The NFC always has a new team come out of nowhere. The Lions have been good all year. Like, and it's screwing up everything.
I
Usually,
mean, it just.
go ahead.
Oh, good. I was just gonna say, it just feels like we have a season of haves and haves nots, right? Like, isn't it like 10 teams have 4 wins or less? Like the top 10 is all 4 wins or less, or something like that in the draft. It's
That
something
sounds right.
crazy along that
Mhm.
along that number, and like, I just feel like we have a lot of garbage teams and then a lot of really good teams at the top. Like the middle class of NFL teams just feels lacking right now. And I think that's like a middle class team can beat some of the best teams and lose some of the bad teams. Like that creates the intrigue. And we just don't have that middle class, it feels like. Except for the
It's
Colts. They're always the middle class.
Yes, they are. It's the Bears are picking at 10th, and they're 5-12. So there's 10 teams that have 5 wins or less. Meanwhile, just the Dolphins, who are picking at 13, have 8 wins. So there's a 3-win jump only for 3 spots there. So yeah, it's you're right. I don't know if it's a tanking thing or just kind of how things broke out this year.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. This isn't the year to tank. Like
Right. Like
uh
if this was last year, we'd say, oh, everyone's trying to get a quarterback. Like I think it just worked out this year because
yeah.
it's not like I don't know the Bears like no we're not trying to have a quarterback like or like the Saints like we want a like their quarterback got injured. Like I don't know.
Right.
I think it just worked out this way.
Yeah. Just a weird season. But I think it could be argued for that in all levels of football. Like college football had a kind of subpar playoffs, I think, as far as the totally like just top to bottom the competitiveness of the game. So yeah, it's interesting.
Give me a Texans win. Let's shake things up.
Texans finally make the conference
Yeah,
championship.
I
Chiefs
want
are
that.
eliminated early.
Yeah,
Everyone,
that's what.
First Take would love that. Talking about the Chiefs for all day,
Uh
for like a
huh.
week straight. What's wrong with the Chiefs? How do you fix
Wouldn't
this?
even mention the Texans.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah,
it'd
I
be
don't know.
fun.
Something. At least make these games competitive. I don't mind. I don't mind the good teams winning. I want to see at least close games though.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's hope we get a couple good ones this week. We had one last week. Let's get 2 more this week at least. And
And the one last week, my team lost. I didn't even get to enjoy that, Kyle.
I enjoyed it.
Okay, well, glad you enjoyed my team losing. Yeah, Kyle. The fact that this is the NBA every season, I don't know how you do it.
This is the NBA ever see. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not it's definitely a problem I think in professional sports now. This is why my opinion is every sport in the world still needs promotion relegation now. Get rid of
Uh,
tanking immediately. If there's financial, hardships happening if you get relegated, then absolutely everyone will start trying to win all the time. So,
yeah, but
promotion relegation
this
everywhere.
isn't really a tanking thing, right? This is just the good teams are good. I get it's
Yeah, but
kind of tied in, but like I mean, like the reason why the Texans are I don't feel like are as good as the Chiefs isn't like because of the Titans being bad.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm for everybody. Everybody would try and win more.
Okay, well, sure. I don't disagree, but yeah, yeah. Kyle, any final thoughts? You're ready to get out of here.
No, I'm good. Let's get out of here.
Okay. Again, a reminder to everyone: we will be a little bit earlier on Sunday, 10:30 Eastern. Be on the lookout for us there. Yeah. Thanks for everyone. Did we do our plugs? The plug on Twitter.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, if you like audio only podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast, search On the Sideline Podcast. It should be available there. That is our show. Thank you to everybody for watching or listening after the fact. We do appreciate it. And until then, have a good one.
Peace.